Hey you guys, welcome to Bones Collector, and today I'm going to talk about the Plum Island Horror from GMT Games. And this game is brand new. I guess it came out in 2023 according to Board Game Geek, but of course we just played it, so it's going to be a 2024 to us. The designer is Herman Luttman, and I guess Herman Luttman has quite a reputation for great board game designs. He did Dawn of the Zeds, I guess is a very popular zombie game by Herman. And so he knows what he's doing. Just a word about GMT Games, right off the top of the video here. I had no interest whatsoever in playing a GMT game. They never made a game that had a theme that I would be even remotely interested in. They're usually war games. Just politics and war just don't interest me in my board games. But Lori found that they were doing this game, the Plum Island Horror, and when she told me about it, I thought, man, I don't know, maybe I'll have to give GMT a try. I mean, I had looked at their designs and so forth, and I was curious about this game, so we went ahead and purchased a copy. I paid $70 for it, I'm going to tell you that right now. So $70 a copy, pretty expensive game, and we're going to get into that in a little bit. Again, I never had an interest in acquiring a game from GMT until this. Now, there's lots of reviews on the internet already on YouTube about this game. I just want to give my 2 cents worth to my viewers and let them know what I think about this game. And there are videos on YouTube that will tell you how to play this game exactly, and they're very helpful. So the first thing I want to talk about are some room for opportunity that I thought GMT missed in this game. And we'll talk about those things first because there's not very many. But for $71, some of this stuff needs to be mentioned. And one of the things I want to talk about is this board does not lay flat. And it bounces a little bit here and there. And maybe over time it's going to lay flat. But the thing about it is, it's a thin board, and that shouldn't be. I thought this board could have been thicker, a nicer material to make the board. This is a thin board. I don't appreciate that for $71. I mean, the board itself, the artwork and everything is nice. I mean, and the way it's laid out, I love everything about the board itself, other than the physical material that it's made out of. So that was room for opportunity for GMT right there. And then the other room for opportunity is this game is 4 hours long at 2-player. Laura and I have played it 3 times at 2-player, and it takes 4 hours every time we play it, and that's a long game. And I thought they could have done some things to shorten this game, and one of the things I think they could have done to help make this game quicker was there's a couple of charts that you use quite often. The murder movement allowances, and that's these horror stacks that are on the board that are going to move down these tracks. Their movement depends on how many horrors are in that stack. So you have a chart, but it's on this faction board for the mutations. That chart should have been on the board twice, one on each side of the board. That would help you, because when it's on a faction board, because this is a big board, you're going to have your faction sheets, you're going to have your non-player faction sheet, you're going to have your mutations faction sheet, and you don't want to have to look at different places to find information. That chart should have been on the board along with the chart. What did I do with the faction sheet? Oh, here it is. Along with the murder of horrors hits chart that's on this biohazard and civilian rescue sheet and your round tracker. It has a chart on there that tells you how many hits are going to be against you by the stacks of murder of horrors, depending on how many are in the stack and the location on the board. There's room for this stuff, is why it bothers me a little bit. All right, Gravy Train. So that chart should have been on the board also. And in addition, when these stacks of horrors reach the end of these tracks, they will go off the board and they will be on this overrun points track, which can cost you the game. So you're tracking that also, but you have to look that stuff up. Those points totals for these tracks for the overrun should have been printed on the board. You know, those 3 things.
Because they're different.
If they had done those 3 things, it would have saved probably 10 or 15 minutes on game time, because you don't have to stop what you're doing and look that stuff up or find where it's at on another chart. You know, that stuff needed to be on the board. And I'm one of those board gamers that I would rather have that information accessible on the game board and sacrifice the art because of the complexity of this game. This is a medium to heavy game. I'm going to say that right up front. And we generally don't keep games that are 4 hours long. So it would have shaved some of that off and helped players learn this game a little quicker and play it a little quicker. So those things I think they missed the boat on a little bit. Also, the citizens tokens, these blue tokens that are going to populate the board, and you have to rescue 26 citizens. That's one of the conditions of the game. First of all, you have to survive 9 rounds, 3 days, and you have to rescue 26 citizens to win this game. Also, you can lose this game by having the biohazard track go all the way to the top, or the overrun points track go all the way to the top, or if everybody in your factions are getting killed. So there's 3 ways right there to lose the game. But the way you win the game, again, is to survive and rescue 26 citizens. Now, the citizens tokens themselves are fine, except for the back, because they're all named. They all have names on them. And on the back, they printed all of that in white lettering on a light blue background. Very difficult to read. It's very difficult, especially for someone my age. But you know, I always make that excuse, but for older people, but there are a lot of younger people that have vision issues too. That text would have been much better being black. Much better, or the background of the back of these being black with the lettering being white. I mean, something so that stands out, because these aren't that big, and you need to know what that says. There's different interactions in the game where you need to know what civilian that is on the board. So that they missed the boat on that too. That could have helped a lot. And those little tiny things, that doesn't sound like a big miss, but when you're talking about 4 and 5 hours of gameplay time, those little things chip away at you. Those things I just mentioned, 15 minutes off of gameplay, and that's a huge chunk. And it just feels smoother when you can just do that, when you've got that stuff at your fingertips. So I just feel like they missed that. And then, of course, the game length, but yeah, it is what it is. But I will say this, it's 4 hours of fun. It's 4 hours of flat-out fun. Lori and I really enjoyed playing this game. And I said at the top, we normally don't keep a game that plays that long, but we're going to keep this one. We really like it. I'm going to spoil the whole video by telling you we're going to keep this game. As a matter of fact, I think this game is fantastic. We had a great time playing it. I love the game flow. I love everything about this game, other than those things I mentioned where they missed a few things. And those aren't complaints that would stop anyone from playing or buying this game. They're just things that could have sped the gameplay up a little bit and made it smoother and faster. But back to the positives of this game, it's fun, and that's why you play board games. And I'm sure that GMT was target audience for this game. They wanted to kind of introduce newer gamers, or gamers that really don't play games this complex. They wanted to make sure that it was approachable to them. So this game can be beaten pretty handily. Lori and I played it 3 times, beat it 3 times. I never felt like we were in danger of losing the game. However, we still had fun. We still had fun even though we beat the game pretty handily. The designer is offering some tweaks that you can perform in this game to make it a little more difficult, and I'll talk about one of those in a second. And then also there's going to be an expansion coming out that's going to have some things in it, the nightmare mode and such, that are going to be different and make the game harder. Now, I've got mixed feelings about that. Number one, I don't want to buy an expansion. I'm going to tell you that right now. This game was $71, and it should perform for me the way I want it to perform. Now, this is a very approachable game for new gamers to GMT, to new gamers to complex. This is kind of a Ameritrash style game. You know, if you're a new gamer to this type of thing, this is very approachable. It's a great game to learn that on, how to work that system. But it should come out of the box with the ability to raise the difficulty. And one of the suggestions from the designer was to take all of these citizens that have 3 on them out of the game. Now, all of these citizens have point totals on them, 1, 2, or 3, and you have to rescue 26. What's one of the conditions, win conditions of the game. Now, if you take the 3s out of there, well, the first thing we did when we were playing the game was realize we want to protect those 3s, rescue them quickly before one of those stacks of horrors eats them, because you don't want to get caught with losing all your high point civilians. You know, when you're learning the game, that registers very quickly. But we're going to try play the game with that tweak, just that tweak, and that's taking those 3-point civilians off the board, because it doesn't cost us anything to do so. We don't have to buy an expansion, and it makes the game more difficult. The other tweak that we thought might really work for us, we're going to try that, and then we're going to play a game, and if that isn't enough, and during the game, when the stacks of horrors eat a civilian, if you have civilians on here already rescued, once a stack eats that civilian, it's going to subtract from your civilian total on this track. So those two tweaks sound very intriguing to us, and we're going to try and use those in the game one at a time and see what effect it has on the game. Because I don't want to buy the expansion, to be quite honest with you.
And $40-some.
Yeah, 40-some is it?
And it's
$42.99. So it's $42. So you're going to have $120 into this game. I understand why they did what they did. I love that they made this game approachable for new board gamers. I think they should have included all of that expansion stuff in this box and said, here's how you play the game to learn it and have fun with it and learn our system, and then you're going to add this, or you're going to add this, and you're going to add that, and change the games to make it exponentially more difficult. And I think that's important to say, that that kind of stuff should have been in the box. So that's a lost opportunity there from GMT. But back to the positives of this game. Hey, I tell you what, the component quality is great. These dice are nice. You get, let's see, 4, 5, 6 of the dice that you're going to roll. It's an Ameritrash style game, and 33% of that dice is blank, so you're going to get screwed by the dice in this game. You're going to roll those dice, roll 3 of them, and come up 3 blanks, and you're going to go, oh my gosh, I can't believe I just did that. You know, that kind of thing. But the dice are very nicely done. I want to praise GMT for these standees. These things are amazing. They have a bunch of information on them, but these are so nice. They offer all the information. It has your close combat number on it, your range combat number, your administrative number, your bravery number, your movement number, your movement if you pay a supplies number, which is larger, and your health, all on this standee. So that is pretty neat. And I love that about this game. There's just so much to consider because of that. I love this game. Back to the citizens, though, there's also some VIP citizens that you have in the game, and they can do some different things too. So, and they're usually higher point totals. So we're going to leave those in the game, even though we're going to take the 3s out of the regular citizens. We're going to keep these VIPs in the game because they're interesting.
Well, they don't always come all in.
Yeah, and they don't always come into the game. They're put in the game by drawing cards. And which brings me to the next thing I want to talk about is the decks of cards. These decks of cards, there's 3 decks of cards that are going to run this game, and I'm telling you what, they are all fantastic. And what a great game design, what a great attribute, what a fantastic way to run this game and operate this game with these 3 decks of cards. This Fate deck is absolutely incredible. Every one of these Fate cards serves a different purpose. They're all identically laid out, but depending on when you draw this or why you draw this card, it's going to depend on what you're using on that Fate card. You may just use the bottom that says no event card or event card, which means you'll don't have to draw an event card, or you do have to draw an event card. And it has a number on there and a starburst. You may just be using that number, depending on what's happening in the game. Maybe this murder stack is coming down one of these rows, and you're going to have to choose a direction for it to go, so you have to draw a Fate card, and the number is going to determine which side of that area they're going to be leaving on. So that's another thing it does. Then you may draw this card and have to do the top 2 things, which are spawn and activate. And that's when you draw a Fate token out of the bag. You're going to spawn on one of these tracks, whichever track it says, and then you're going to activate whatever tracks are on the activate section. So that Fate deck is really fantastic, and I love the way it has so many things to do in this game. I just loved it. It was, it just blew me away. And then these search cards, you get a pretty thick deck of these search cards, but while I'm at it, I thought there should have been maybe 10 to 20 more cards in the search deck and the event deck in this game, because after 3 plays, we've seen a lot of these cards already. Now, they're not always going to come into play during your game. However, because of what they are, you want that variety to be there, because this feels adventurous. This feels like an adventure game. I mean, it is an adventure game as far as I'm concerned. And there's some great humor and story on these cards that you're going to read that are so funny and so well written. And you want to take the time to do that, by the way, when you're playing this game. While I'm at it, the rule book is funny. I mean, everything about this game
Campy horror.
Yeah, it's just campy horror and some great humor in the rule book and the reference guide that you're going to get with the game. Just, I mean, this was obviously a labor of love by the designers. It's outstanding. You get this VIP civilians chart that's going to tell you what the VIP civilians do. You have a quick reference guide on the back of that that's going to help you play this game. Again, it has the overrun points table on there, which should have been on the board. But gosh, there's just so much to enjoy about this game, and these search cards are part of it. So when you're drawing those search cards, which are cards that are going to help the players, so when you get in a space that has a search, I think it's the binoculars in the space, you have the opportunity to draw a search card, and you're going to draw it off the top of the deck and read the search card. During your search, you find some newspaper stories which indicate that the poor sheriff, who was critically wounded in a shootout a few weeks ago, is coming out of his coma at Good Samaritan Hospital. You wonder how he's doing. Place the Nick Grimes VIP Civilians Unit in the Good Samaritan Hospital area 2G. And that's one of those VIP citizens. You're going to find him and put him in the Good Samaritan Hospital. But the writing on these search cards are fantastic. I just love it. And you want to take the time to do that. And it's a long game anyways. But you don't want to rob yourself of the full experience. It's absolutely fantastic to be able to read these and appreciate the effort that went into this stuff. There's some great humor in this deck, and I'm not going to read it all, but it's absolutely fantastic. Then the event cards are the ones that are going to hurt the players. And every time you have to draw one, you're going to grit your teeth, because it's what happens. Oh, excuse me. I'm going to back up to the search cards. They will also, for the players, offer these NPCs, standees. That's non-player characters that are very helpful. There's 3 of them on this sheet. If you can get these in the game, you can use those on your turn, just like your faction standees. So you can use those in the game to help you out. And some of these are fantastic. This Hero of the Day has a 4 combat power, so you're going to roll 4 dice in close combat, and then it has a 3 dice total for ranged. So in a ranged attack, you can use 3 dice, and that's pretty nice. And then he also has 4 movement, and that is super sweet. So he moves quickly around the board. I don't think anybody in the factions has 4 movement. I think that's the only standee in the game with 4 movement. So that's pretty nice. But these event cards are going to bring out these mutations, and that can really be brutal, man. I mean, these mutations, there's 6 of them on this faction sheet, and this faction sheet, to be fair, you have to have access to that also when you're playing the game, because you need to know how they work when it's their turn to activate in the game. But they're very cool. We got the Birds of Prey, we got the Infected Sasquatch, we got the Leper Messiah, we have Most Wanted. So, I mean, stuff's cool. And we have the Murder Hornets, I love those guys, and the Wild-Eyed Rats. I mean, everything about this game is humorous. It's so much fun. Another thing I want to mention is the stacks of horrors that are in the game, because these could have very easily, and many zombie games do this, every zombie is a figurine. You know, if you ever played Zombicide, every zombie is a miniature. I mean, so the board is full of plastic, and that can get on your nerves. These are just stacked up, and they can get as tall as they want to get. They start out spawning here at the beginning, but if they don't move or activate and you draw a spawn for that track again, they're just going to go right on top of those. And eventually these stacks will get so tall that you probably cannot get rid of them. So you eventually are just going to say, the heck with it. There's 14 horrors in this stack. Just let it go. Because once they're tall like that, they only move 1 space at a time, and they're eventually going to go off the board, and it's going to count against you on the overrun chart. But there's no way you can whittle that thing down if there's that many horrors in that stack. It'll beat you to death, and you'll end up losing your faction people that are trying to beat it. But that's one of the tough decisions you have to make in this game. But these event cards are fabulous also. Hey, by the way, a reference card or a player action card tells you how to take your turn and what the different actions you can take and how to do it during the game. Very helpful for players. So those come with the game also. There is a lot of helpers in this game to help you play it. They did a nice job. You get a ton of these event cards, but just I think maybe 15 or 20 more of these to help the game have a little more variety and longevity in your library when you're playing. But these event cards are fabulous. Let's see, let me read one. Spawn a murder of horror stack directly into the northern cherry pit grove. That's one of them. Reduce the evacuation points marker by 2 spaces on the evacuation points track. This event has no effect if the marker is currently in the 26 plus space. So you'd have to move down your survivor track of survivors that you've already saved. This is Bigfoot Lives. Spawn the infected Sasquatch mutation standee in Pine Barrens area 5B. And he would come off the board and go into play. So these decks of cards are brilliant. It's just a wonderful design. The more I played this game, the more I loved it. And we beat it, but I would like it to be a little more difficult because a good cooperative adventure game, you only want to win maybe half the time. You know, you need to lose once in a while. And I would say 50% is great. Even maybe 4 out of 10 winning is great. Because you want to be excited. Hey, we did it. We won. If you win every time, the game will lose its luster. So we're going to have to tweak this game a little bit to make it a little more difficult for us to win and play with it. Again, those 2 things I mentioned, and try that. Now, I didn't mention these tokens that you see on the board here, and you're going to have a bag. You have 2 bags that come with the game. One of them is this initiative token bag, and it's going to have 2 tokens in it for every faction in the game, and it's going to have 3 fate tokens and a doom token. The doom token, if it comes out of the bag, that is going to be the event cards. The 3 fate tokens, you'll draw a fate card. And the other 4 tokens, 2 for each faction in the game when you're playing 2-player. And as those come out, that's how the turn is going to go. And then you have a biohazard bag, and you're going to be putting biohazard cubes, green, yellow, and red in this bag. And at the end of every round, you draw 2 cubes out of here? I think it is. Yeah, you're going to draw biohazard cubes out of that bag at the end of every round, and depending on what color they are, you're going to move up this biohazard track, and of course you don't want it to get to the top or you'll lose. And both those bags come with the game. Oh, the factions themselves, there's 6 factions in the game. I didn't talk about them, but they're wonderful, and they took some time to develop. I love this. Just so crazy cool what they did in these factions. Now, I used the Plum Island Constabulary, and it has some of the characters. Francis Drebin is one of the characters, and Frank Drebin was the guy, Leslie Nielsen in the movie series Naked Gun? I think it was called something like that, or Police Academy, I don't know which it was, but he was Frank Drebin. So that humor's in there. You have a compound, each faction has a compound, and it's just a token that you're going to be able to build onto the board that's going to give you special benefits. But this one's called Paddy Wagon because it's the constabulary, P-A-D-D-Y wagon, so Paddy Wagon. And then Officer Joe Friday, for people my age, you remember Dragnet, and Joe Friday was the main character in Dragnet. So those types of things that are interjected into this game. Andrew Barry, the mayor, that's pretty funny. Ed Cramden and Ralph Norton are in this faction of Greenport Township, and those, of course, are the Honeymooners. That was Jackie Gleason and Art Carney. But I just love the Fire Marshal Bill is one guy on here, and that's Jim Carrey's character from In Living Color. Just all sorts of stuff. What's that?
Kevin Blart.
Kevin Blart from Mall Cop. Sergeant York, he's from back in the day. I think it was Gary Cooper played Sergeant York. Jason Kruger is one character. Fort Courage was the fort in F Troop, the TV show.
The Brady Girls are on there.
The Brady Girls are on here. Ellie Mae Bobby is a character on here. Dr. Roy Wankman, okay, from Ghostbusters. Dr. Leo Corey, Compound W for your compound. I thought that was pretty good. Kevin Blart, yeah. Dr. Irwin McCoy, so Dr. McCoy's in there from Star Trek. Martha, Mrs. Wonderful Winfrey. That's pretty funny. Sergeant Forrest O'Rourke and Larry Agorn, those are both from F Troop, the TV show back in the 60s. And Jess Parmenter also is from F Troop. Homer Pyle, if you don't know who Gomer Pyle is, that was a show from back in the 60s. Mac Reacher, so Reacher is a Tom Cruise character and a novel series. So very cool stuff. Miguel Spitz is a swimmer. You know, Mark Spitz, the great swimmer from the Olympics. Phil Tiger King, you know, Tiger Woods, the golfer. Johnny Deere, he's riding a tractor. So I could go on all day about the effort that they put in to the writing in this game. So, hey, what's the bottom line? It's long, but it's fun. It's very approachable. It's going to be in my top 10 of the year, probably for 2024. So I appreciate what GMT did here by making this game a little easier than their reputation would suggest. And everything in the game is wonderful. It's a wonderful game to play. It's 4 hours of just fun and laughter, and you get the feeling of these stacks of horrors coming after you. This island that's been, you know, the chemical plant was compromised and people were poisoned, and you know, they turned into all these horrible creatures and so forth. And I just love the game. Lori and I enjoy it very much. But hey, that's it. I've talked too long about this game. I just wanted to tell you what I thought about it. That's Plum Island Horror by GMT Games and Herman Luttman. Herman, thank you very much for an outstanding effort, a wonderful game that we will enjoy for many years to come, because there's lots in here and lots to enjoy, and you will play this over and over again, and we have already, and I can't wait to do it again. See you the next time on The Bones Collector. I love every one of you. Keep on board gaming. It's the best hobby on the planet because of games like Plum Island Horror. Bye-bye.